Actually, here is Matt. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'll just wait for Matt to be able to hear us. Hello, Matt. Nice to see you. I'm sorry to hear about your back. Okay, well, he's with us, but he's on his back, apparently. Oh, you're there.
Yeah, I'm listening in.
Very good. Okay.
Lying on my living room floor.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. Okay, right, everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time to come and to come and attend this. So, we're launching our 2022 apprenticeship scheme. So, like some of you, post Brexit Britain, we've recruited technicians from abroad due to staff shortages, but this was never supposed to be the plan. We designed this so that we could home grow our own talent with an eye to making opportunities for underprivileged youngsters. That was always the plan. So overview of the first year. So after 2 years of planning, so we've received confirmation, acceptance to standard, COVID happened, the course cost £11,000 per student, which is 95% paid for by the government, except for Lavie paying companies. The first intake was delayed to August 2021. And those students are going to complete their studies with an NVQ grade 3 qualification when complete. We received support from Screen Skills to create the standard. We also applied for and received further £10,000 of Screen Skills to pay for the marketing of the course, to arrange the selection day and to oversee the selection process, which is undertaken by Phil of Next Gen Skills Academy, who's with us here. Hi, Phil. So Phil's going to tell us how it's going to work in a while. But due to COVID, the 20 places that we'd had originally expected ended up being an intake of just 9 from 5 employers. And today, from those 9, 4 of those have dropped out and only 5 of those are remaining. And at those low numbers, LSA it's simply not viable at that. And Mick from LSA is here as well. He's going to talk a little bit about that too. So VMI have 2, Pixie Pixel have 1, Movitech have 1, CVP had 1 to begin with, CineArc have 1, Promotion they took 2 and they lost 1 of those, and Brownian have 1 as well. Is the one at Brownian still with you?
Yeah.
Yes. So the first year of training hasn't been without its challenges for LSA. And several sponsor companies have volunteered to offer training to bolster the LSA program. And VMI of Pixie have provided bespoke training, but other sponsoring companies expect to do this in the future years to help students have a more rounded education. That hasn't happened very much this year at all. And I spoke to Jeff, and he was quite critical of the first year of its of the course, but acknowledged that he hadn't given any of the bespoke training because they're too busy.
Yeah, I mean, aspects of it. I'm not saying the whole thing. I think it was that was just feedback I was getting from our apprentice, and I think the difficulties that they've had, obviously with the numbers as well and things like that, was always going to be tricky. And we would hope to do something a day somewhere, as I've mentioned to Mick, at some point in the future. But at the moment, I'm working 7 days a week. We're flat out. We can't do anything. I've literally got half my staff in today because of COVID and jobs. So yeah, we just don't have time to think about this sort of stuff. We're just getting on with the day to day. But come sort of end of May, we're hoping.
And this is the same for all of us. And you're absolutely right. We all have challenges, but you know, the whole objective of having this particular program is it is an event, a program for our industry, and we have to make it work or not work. So the employers had a first roundtable discussion in February. There's a lot of discussion around the fact that we'd had a dropout rate of about 30%, multiple factors, age. We felt that younger candidates were far more likely to stay, and money, the earn as you learn mantra, wasn't properly appreciated. And no one had any issue with the minimum salary being imposed on first year apprentices. I'll talk about that. I've got some calculations and some ideas around that as well. And some students didn't value the training. And again, discussion about the training later. I felt that better guidelines from NextGen to provide prospective candidates might be helpful. So older, well-educated candidates applying for this, ultimately, it was a bit of a stepping stone for them. So we're quite careful about that. Length of training. So after feedback from Tara of Panavision, Mick Nelson of LSA redesigned the program to include the 675 hours of program in 18 months rather than 2 years. So more training hours squeezed into the first 12 months of the program. And we agreed that the reduction in training time would improve the success of the program. So that's a good thing. And the collaborative approach to training we've already mentioned. And marketing, we all need to market it and get behind it. We agreed on a no poach policy, and we've created a code of conduct for which we've all discussed and agreed. We're not going to go formal enough to ask us all to sign it. And also part of this was the shared marketing costs for NextGen Skills Academy to market the course and secure recruits. So so Phil's going to talk about what they do, but ultimately they market the course, they secure recruits, arrange the activity selection day and interview boards. And it costs £8,550, which if there's 10 companies is £855 each. If there's 15 companies, it's just £570 each. Now I've been speaking to Aspec, and Aspec are quite keen, if there's enough interest in the course, to pay for the fee for NextGen, the £8,550, and then we just to make sure that we're all members of Aspec. Okay, so that's quite a good idea. But to do that, we have to have enough people joining this, and there aren't too many of the new companies here, other than Ari and Panavision, who is there anybody else here that actually? And I know Rob, you're here as well from Plimsoll, which is really good. Obviously, you've shown interest in this, and we've not had Plimsoll here yet. So 2-year training plan, now 18 months. So common salary plan. So employees in their first year of apprenticeship by law are entitled to a minimum hourly rate of £4.30 an hour, which is £9,000 per annum. We agreed that we would pay our apprentices £12,000. Now, just want to give you a little bit of background about where this originally came from. So we wanted to pay our staff all more, and we wanted to be a living wage accredited firm. And part of the difficulty there was that newbies would come and join our industry, and they wouldn't have lots of experience, and they would have to be paid £22,500. Even though they weren't ready. And I said, this isn't quite right until they're ready. No, within 6 months, it has to be that. And also, myself, Mark Thurston at the time, a few years ago, we found that the rate of cycling of techs coming in and being really keen to start paying off their 50 grand's worth of student debt was a problem. So that's how the apprenticeship was born. And what I was told is that there was an apprenticeship standard of graphics, computer graphics, and there were different incomes that each of the apprentices were being paid. And they found out in the very first meeting that one was on £10,000 a year and one was on the living wage, and then they decided to switch. So we wanted to avoid this. And we can discuss and agree whether we want to increase this. I mentioned about the older applicants as well. And the original concept was for youngsters of 16 to 19 without industry experience could enter the industry without attending university. So all of that is what we had originally thought. We also came to the conclusion that employers' first intake had an ideal profile of candidates 18 to 24 without a degree or education above A-levels, and some, I think Jeff was one of those, would like them to be able to drive. So if we give what we want to NextGen Skills Academy, it will help them with their SIFT process. There's also a bonus. Now, those in the first year, there was a £4,000 per student bonus, which is £1,000 plus £3,000, which is now only £1,000. And I can tell you that I haven't had any of that money yet. I don't Has anybody else seen any of that? Because I haven't seen it yet. Jeff? I don't think so.
Barry, who is this bonus paid by?
Government.
Right, and what's it dependent on?
Any employer who takes on an apprentice will receive a £1,000 bonus after 12 months, if they're assuming they're still in place, for taking on an apprentice. But after COVID, the government, in order to encourage youngsters to get into formal training courses, increased the bonus to have a bonus £3,000 per student, and that was extended and then extended until December. That's now finished.
So they have committed to provide a bonus of £1,000 per student after 12 months.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't think, Meg, do you have anybody there today from the apprentices who wants to give a short talk of their experiences?
Sorry, the apprentices are all in a workshop at the moment, Barry.
So that's fine. Okay, well, in which case, do the employers that are here want to talk? Jeff, do you want to just say what your experience has been with the program so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jack, who's our apprentice, seems very keen. He's very interested. We kind of have realised that he wanted to be on set. It was one of the things that we discussed in the last meeting, I think, is that all of these guys applying for this really just want to be on set and become DOPs. We kind of know that. And I think those that got through, as it were, who got into these positions probably were better at hiding that fact from us than the ones that weren't. So yeah, having said that, they all acknowledge there's a reality to life, that in this industry you do your dues and you learn, you know, the long way, and eventually you'll get there. But I think that might be one of the bigger factors as to why people have left, because they're all too keen and eager, and they're not willing to wait, and they've got no patience. And I think Dana was saying last time, as we all know, the industry is as busy as it's ever been, and there are more opportunities for youngsters now than there ever has been. So they'll get a phone call and they'll be off like a shot. So the time at which we launched it has been quite difficult. In terms of the 1 day a week at college, that works fine. You know, most of the time that doesn't impact anything from what we're doing at this end, and we can still carry on, you know, showing him stuff and using him as we would any other employee on all the other days. And I think he's enjoying it as well. I think the only problem we had from it was from perhaps from the lack of numbers and the dropouts, was the college days were getting a bit repetitive in terms of what they were actually doing, to the extent that I was, you know, our guy was asking us, can he just come into work that day instead and just carry on as normal? Because I think there was maybe less structure for the bits that were being put in place on those days. But I imagine that's a lot to do with, budgets and number of people and things like that as well from the college side. But overall, it's been good. You know, it's been a good thing to have done. And I probably haven't spent enough time reading up on all the reflections. And I mean, from my point of view, I don't have an HR department. I am the HR department because I'm a very small business, so I don't get time to sit and read reams and reams of paper about ticking boxes and what he's done and what he's not. And you know, it's a good scheme. I just think for small businesses like my own, it's very hard to kind of manage the administration of that course. So in a way, I'm kind of like, great, I sign up for it, let them get on with it. You know, I've got another employee, brilliant. But, you know, perhaps I should have gone into it thinking I should have spent a bit more time doing all that side of it. That would be an honest kind of hands up, that's my fault kind of thing.
Okay, Steve, what was your experience like? Because I know that you had an issue to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, our experience was was fine, really. I mean, we made the wrong decisions. I think we initially took on an apprentice who, within the first week, realised that the commuting distance from his location to Brentford, at CVP in Brentford, where he was based, was too far. So he very very maturely and very reasonably said, look, I can't sustain this. So we agreed to part ways. But luckily it was so early on in the process that we were able to work with NextGen, etc., to get another apprentice candidate on board. And she was brilliant, really good, really talented. The issue was, as Jeff just said, she was an aspiring DOP. she was a bit more mature. She had a degree behind her. And once she opened up her contacts for being in employment in the area, she was off. Look, that was CVP's fault as much as anything. We went for the candidates that we thought were the most developed in terms of their skills profile and their use to us as a business initially, and we're trying to circumvent the kind of elbow grease we were going to have to put in terms of the initial upfront work. So the payoff there was that we had more mature candidates who had more going on in their lives and weren't prepared to stick it out unless it worked perfectly for them. So yeah, this time round we're keen to look to take on 2, but not make those mistakes. So we're going to be going for the lower level of academic achievement up to the point, and for someone that's probably a bit greener as well and a bit less experienced.
Well, I think those are fair comments. So, Sebastian, I'm sorry, we've not spoken before. Which company are you from?
I'm also from Plimsoll. I'm with Rob.
Oh, that's good. Okay, I'm really glad. I thought you were going to say you're from a very well-known rental company, and actually, we've had lunch before, and I should know you very well. So that's great.
No, it's all good.
So for Plimsoll, our experiences too, have been largely a bit mixed. We started with 3. Part of the rationale behind the code of conduct was that one of our apprentices had only been in post for 3-4 months before they started sending out CVs, and they sent out a CV. Panavision went and saw Panavision, and Panavision gave them a job, not realizing that they were an apprentice being trained by us. So that's why we've created this. And the others, we've got one that's doing extremely well. We've got another one that's not quite doing as well, and I'm a little concerned as to his involvement within the process. But these are youngsters, and they're not entirely sure of what they want to do. I think it's really important for us, if you're going to be taking on someone young, to recognise that they're going to be this blank canvas, and that's quite important. Okay, so Mick, do you want to talk about the LSA program?
Yeah, I can do. I can talk just broadly about the apprenticeship for anybody that is on this call that's unfamiliar to it. But in terms of signing up as an employer, it's fairly straightforward. It's a onboarding process and then completing 3 documents with the apprentices. It really doesn't take very long, and it's not kind of hugely involved. So over the course of the qualification itself, the apprentices need to demonstrate that they've hit the 15 occupational duties, which I guess this was some of the stuff that Jeff was speaking about, like the employer managing the training provision in the 4 days a week that they're at work. And that's something that in hindsight from this year, so everything was, as Barry kind of articulated, at the start, everything was a little bit last minute in terms of the program coming together and LSA being on board as the training provider. Whereas moving into this year, it would be the best way that this would work, I think, is if it's very consultative. So if we build the program around what you as employers want us to be delivering, in an ideal world, get you down to the college, show you around, show you the facilities, introduce you to the apprentices that we've currently got, and then build the program about how it works best for you. The occupational standards, I think, Barry, it was you that was the leader of developing those occupational standards. So those 15 duties that the apprentices have to be able to demonstrate over their 18 months on the course are all things that are fairly ingrained within what the job role at your companies would be anyway. They evidence those with work logs, they take pictures of them at their workplace, and then they upload and they reflect on them when they're at LSA. One of the things on their 1 day a week at LSA, one of the things they need to do as well is evidence that they've been demonstrating high levels of professional knowledge, skills and behaviours over a sustained period of time, which again, they kind of log that, they reflect on that, and they reflect on their journey towards that at their time at LSA. It takes approximately, as Barry said, it's supposed to be a 2-year program, but we're pretty confident that with the right students and the right apprentices and the right mindsets, there's no reason why they can't get through that in an 18-month period. And that is one of the, the idea of a 2-year program is one of the stumbling blocks for the apprentices. We kind of approximate it'll take about a year to get them up to these occupational duty standards and the knowledge, skills and behaviour standards. And then when they've been working at those standards for a sustained period of around 3 months, we can then enter them for their endpoint assessment. We've been working with AIM, who are the endpoint assessment body who kind of authenticate and provide the apprenticeship qualification at the end of the course. And they're hugely supportive. Like, the reality with this is if students if the apprentices are turning up for their training days, and if they're turning up for their 4 days at work and they're doing their normal job role at work and they're doing the training program, it will be very difficult for them to fail the apprenticeship. Because it's just a supportive process, and the standard is built around what they would be doing in these job roles. The endpoint assessment consists of 3 things, all of which are not hugely complicated. There's a multiple choice test that they have to complete. There's a 1-day observation within their workplace of them going around their usual duties. And then there's a professional discussion that they have based on the work log that's been developed from the occupational duties over the course of the preceding year.
If I could just jump in. So all of the original Trailblazer group, we designed all of this, and we all asked ourselves the question: what would a pass look like, and what would a distinction look like? So that was all fed through to AIM, who actually designed all of that around it. And we haven't yet been through the endpoint assessment. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. So providing they pass all of those, they'll obtain their apprenticeship. And this is AIM's first year of delivering this as well. So AIM are a little bit backwards coming forwards with exactly what those processes will look like. But the things that they have told us, the whole program is supposed to be collaborative across different camera rental companies to ensure that the apprentices are getting an understanding of how the industry works across the board, rather than the experience of working at one particular company. But that's something that we want to consult with you on, as we're able to, as you may know about LSA, we're a big working industry film college with quite a lot of significant links within the film industry, and quite a lot of, nothing compared to what you guys have got, but quite good facilities, quite good set of resources as well. So we're able to fill a lot of the gaps in the training that they won't be completing naturally through their 4 days a week work. So we can implement workshops from and visits to different camera rental companies, and then we can, plug all of the gaps that's needed in the occupational standard. As Barry says, it's a level 3 course. So ideally it is best suited for people who are either recent GCSE leavers, or in particular A-level graduates. We can scale that up. We can take a higher quality of student who've done a more kind of bespoke specific course, but then that would require us to have additional support from yourselves to be able to deliver the kind of higher level workshops. At the college as well, we've got a range of masterclasses and industry guests and professional projects that the apprentices can get involved in, and that they can help support here. So we've got level 3 film courses where students are going out and shooting all of the time. So we can give the students a lot of the apprentices a lot of that on-set experience of working as a technician on set as well.
So really, it's for us all to, and that's one of the criticisms that I would put towards the employers this year, that we haven't all been necessarily as engaged as we need to be to try to make this as successful as it can be. So I don't think that we can actually just say to LSA, please get on with it, and actually design something that's perfect for us, and then criticize it afterwards if we don't put the effort in. So I think that's important to mention. The selection process is also really important. Well, we've all read lots of CVs, and it's very hard to read a CV from someone in a very specific role, but very, very difficult if someone is only 18 or 17. So Phil, do you want to introduce your program and how it works, please?
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see some of the faces I recognised from last time around. And hello to everyone meeting for the first time. Right, so Next Gen and the selection days. We're going to run something similar to what we did last year, informed by some of what I'm hearing today and some of what Barry's told me previously, especially the non-graduates and the ability to drive. That's something we'll build into the messaging that we put out there, that we're going to be welcoming applicants from non-graduates and those who can drive, although we're going to be quite clear, we're not going to close the door to people who don't yet have a driving license or those who are under 18, because you could be taking 16-year-olds. And just to point, that 16 to 18-year-old group is where the £1,000 incentive cuts in from government. So I think I'm 19 plus, I think that goes. And Mick might know more about that than me. In terms of recruitment, we've had an expression of interest page open since December, I think. We've got 44 people listed on that currently. That is really just names and contact details. There's not a lot else there. Ooh, thank you very much. And what we'll be doing in April is opening up applications. So I'll circulate the questions again, like I did last year, to you all, with the updates around driving, for instance, so you get an idea of what they're going to be looking for. But we're looking for potential here. And I'm very pleased to hear you're looking for people who are greener, because you will keep those, you'll retain them. You're more likely to retain them with the money that you're looking to pay. I know it's always a balancing act between living wage and someone being worth their weight within the company. But I think if you are going to hire people who are have more complete skills and are more mature, then you're going to have to be looking at tiering what they earn. So once we get the applications back, I'm looking to open applications around the 18th of April and close them around the 16th of May. They get sifted for eligibility, so like graduates will be put to one side. People applying from outside the UK will be put to one side, because there's no way you're going to sponsor people for a visa generally. And I say that, but looking at the world that we're in now, if anyone has a particular interest of sponsoring someone for a work visa from perhaps someone like Ukraine, speak up, because I'm sure we will get applicants from Ukraine. And that may be something that some of you may feel strongly about and be wanting to do that. I don't know. At the end of when applications close, and I've done an initial eligibility sift, I'm going to share that for 2 weeks with LSA, because they need that time to start doing a prior learning check. So before applications come to you guys, I'll have gone through what we have with LSA, and they will have the contact details so they can do prior learning checks. Those are important to make sure that people for instance, don't have a degree that excludes them, or they've done something so similar at level 3 already that they wouldn't, or level 4, that they wouldn't be able to get on board this. So that's another sifting area that we do. And what I've done previously is sifted people for what I think is potential. In other areas that I've done this year, I managed to pull some stats together, and it's when I score people for potential. In other areas, I've seen that if I'm scoring people at 11 and 12, there's a 65% chance of them getting a job offer. 9s and 10s, it's 25, and 8s and belows, it's 10. So the grading of people for potential, I know, works in principle. We've only done it once on Camera Prep Technician, so we'll learn on this version and hopefully in the future just how close I'm getting. But I'm confident that I've got a protocol that can work to provide you with a listing of who's most likely to suit your businesses. So after the prior learning checks, I do a final sift. I send that sift to you guys. This is going to be around 13th of June, week beginning 13th of June. So you receive a sifted list with people rated for what I think their potential is. They've already had their prior learning checked, and you get to decide who you want to invite to a selection day. Now, you may take the view of like everyone who scored above a certain number, you want to see them, which is fine. You may choose to narrow in on half a dozen candidates there and then. That's entirely up to you. Both methods work. We'll end up, I'm hoping, with around 20 candidates per session, and we will look to run 2 sessions in a day at LSA for selection.
If I could just jump in, because you did the second one last time where you assigned and then you gave the job offers, and it worked really well. So yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Well, that comes, yeah, that's the next step actually, because you get to meet them all in a group, so you see how they interact in a group. We'll set them a problem-solving task. That selection day, because these are young people, we tend to find that integrating them, having them as groups rather than 3 big grown-ups grilling one 17-year-old. But if you've got like 4 or 5 of them in there, you can get a conversation going between them and yourselves. That works quite well to discover who's outgoing, who needs a bit of encouragement to find their feet, which can be good as well, and just are they engaging?
And your activity events are also really successful.
Yeah, well, the one we ran last year, we'll probably do it again, is the Lego challenge, where they're in teams, 4 or 5 people in a team. There's a pre-made Lego model. One person from each team is shown that for 2 minutes. They go away, they have to communicate with the rest of the team how to build it out of the Lego sets they've got on their tables. And then after 5 minutes, the other person comes up and sees it for 30 seconds, and we roll around like that. We throw in curveballs. We will swap the models out for one that is very similar but subtly different. And we see how close people get. I've never seen anyone replicate a model completely. Yeah. But it's
it was challenging, but you know it's worked well, and just for my experience, I felt that Phil's involvement in this has been really invaluable. And as I said earlier, if we can attract enough people to make it worth Aspect's while, then it would actually be a really good method for Aspect to have, you know, to be able to own and champion the apprenticeship, and to help to, and for us all to promote it, make it all work. So that's all really good.
And just to finish, so after you've seen everyone in groups and you've seen them work, and by the way, when they're working in groups on the challenge, you're encouraged as employers to intervene and ask them what's going on and what their strategies are. So, and you know, you're not passive.
Well, and another point that's actually really important here is that Movitech didn't attend the activity today, and we found it really very, very helpful. So I'd strongly recommend, if any of you guys are looking to take on apprentices too, and we'll get onto that right at the end, who wants to do it, is that do take part, because it is really good.
And then subsequent to that, because some employees couldn't attend, and some people always want to follow up with a one-to-one interview that can happen online. And then because the group last year chose to have the places allocated, there was a vote on that. Your offers, your short list of 1, 2, or 3 people, and if you're going to hire one apprentice, I encourage you not to have a short list of 1. Because you'll probably end up being disappointed, and just make sure you give yourself choice. Send that back to me, and I'll allocate on trying to give people their highest choice possible. But bear in mind, there will still be some discussion around salary, because you may not all pay the same. You may want to.
Okay, but
And
thank you. That's you taking me exactly onto where I wanted to go. So salary wise, if I can just share this with you, I've had a conversation this morning, and sorry about you guys couldn't hear me before. My microphone wasn't in the right place, and you were all too polite to say. So common salary plan. So this is what the employees are entitled to by law. So we thought that what we would do is we would pay them, and we agreed that we would pay them £12,000 of the first year's salary. And I spoke this morning to Tara of Panavision to try because they've got certain company rules and policies, and they wanted to pay them the living wage. So she's going to go and discuss this with them. But broadly, this is where I came to. So they are going to receive £11,000 of training as part of their salary. They only work 4 days out of 5. In fact, they work 675 hours. They're trained 675 hours. So if we deduct the 1 in 5 days that they're not in the workplace, and then we deduct 2/3 of the training fee from them, we end up with £10,667. And paying £12,000 would be more than this, but I would propose raising this by 8%. I think it's important for us all, whatever we're going to do, to discuss it and agree. But I did have another approach, and that is that we take the apprenticeship course, which is 675 hours, which to that for that much. So there's 2,080 hours in the year that they work, and at £11 5p an hour is £18,061 per annum. Now, if they go to university, they have to pay for their course fees. So here we've got an £11,000 course fee. So if you remove the £11,000 from here, or rather 2/3 of that, which is £7,000, once again, you're going to get between £10,000 and £11,000. So, I mean, that's sort of my idea, and that's where I came to it, with a whole idea of earn as you learn. And we didn't agree to a common salary for year 2, but kind of something around this might be appropriate, because we certainly don't want to lose people. Now, I don't know whether this is an appropriate, do you know, listen, we can open up. Do we like this idea? What do we think? Mattia, we didn't actually have you as part of this. I know that S&O showed quite a lot of interest last year, and then didn't end up taking some. What's your view on this so far?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, we didn't participate last year, but we're still very much interested in being kept in the loop. The main reasoning behind why we didn't is because, first of all, we're after people that can drive. So our employee development path is slightly different. We want people to go on set with us, with our equipment, with our vans, and so it's a little tricky from that point of view. But as I said, we want to be kept in the loop and sort of see if maybe this year is, maybe we can take 1 or 2 in.
Okay.
Because it's looking quite busy. So even though, but obviously it's not my decision, and I'm going to feed this back to the team, and we'll see if this is for us or not.
For sure. And Tom from Ardman, are you just here out of interest, or are you looking to also take people? You're on mute, by the way.
Sorry, I was talking on mute again. We need a new camera prep technician, so I'm here because I'm interested. I have a few questions because I'm not familiar enough with what's happened already. I wanted to just to clarify, first of all, where the training days take place.
Okay, so the training days are in person in Islington, at LSA's college. They have the capability to do distance, and certainly this was, and it's a bit of a shame that promotion on here, because they took 2 people, one for Manchester, the Manchester one. Actually, Mick, do you want to talk about how that actually worked? Because I think they sent them down for each of those events.
Yeah, there was so with the employer and the student, there was a little bit of a discrepancy where I'm in educational terms, like everybody is a student in my head. I mean apprentice rather. So the apprentice was not as engaged in the idea of traveling to Islington every week as the employer was engaged in that. So we came to a compromised version where we totally can facilitate some elements of remote working and some elements of flexibility, particularly utilizing Zoom and conference and software now. But there are certain days where there may be something special or specific that's happening, or there's a workshop at one of our other employers where we requested the apprentice to be in on that day. I think it worked out as maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks. But a lot of the things that they complete can be completed at distance, but what they can't complete is specific workshops.
And that presumably is because there's a reasonable amount of hands-on work necessary.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the hands-on training they get naturally from their 4 days in the job, working through their general job. As Barry was saying before, the occupational standard developed by looking at a cross-section of lots of different camera rental companies and looking at what the components of their first year or first year and a half of training on the job are. But yeah, there's any of the employer workshops we go to is quite specific, and then any of the additional gap plugging training that we offer is stuff that they would need to be in person for. The apprenticeship is a huge administrative qualification as well, so a lot of the administration can be completed remotely.
Okay, and can you just confirm, Barry, probably, the £11,000 is a total course fee, is it, or it's an annual course fee?
It's total. It's a total course fee for the period, and if you're not a levy payer, so you don't have a salary bill of £3 million or more, then it is paid for by 95% of it's paid for by the government. If you are a levy payer, then the amount that you pay, it would come out of that. So either way, you wouldn't pay for it, as long as you had a student who complies with it, say they haven't already done a degree.
So you would end up paying what? Roughly?
0.05 times 11,000. So you would pay £550 over 2 years.
Right. Okay. So your financial commitment would be £550 total plus whatever you're paying in salary.
Yes.
And travel, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Can I just chip in? There's a very good chance that you won't have to pay anything, because there are a lot of levy transfers on offer out there. So people like Amazon Prime are very keen to pass their money on, so that can be arranged.
That's true. Well, thank you for that. Maybe CVP as well. so Rob, what are you? Yeah, go on.
One more related question, just due to being a bit geographically remote from Islington. Is recruitment national, or does it tend to be London centric?
Our channel, well, we're going to be holding events in London because that's where most of the employers are. But we use social media, so yes, it can go out nationally. And last time round, we had people apply from all over the country. So if you've got something, what I encourage is, if you're interested, we can highlight that there is an opportunity available in the Bristol and Bath area, for instance. That's quite easily done, and we've got quite a lot of good channels down there now, because we've recently been delivering a boot camp for the West of England Combined Authority. So we've got a lot of links into various social media and reaching hard to reach groups.
And also, one of the apprentices that we took on came from Cornwall and relocated. So yeah, it's certainly possible. We were a little bit concerned by that, but he followed through. Rob, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great scheme. I don't know about getting candidates up and back to Islington. Just cost wise and stuff like that, really. But I mean, it's very interesting. And the one thing about the living wage is obviously that's different from London to outside of London. So I don't know if there'd be any scope for sort of adjusting that if you're not sort of based in London.
Well, this is a system for us all to make up rules that we think are appropriate. You know, it's just about involvement. But probably on that very same subject, just to show you this. So we came up with this code of conduct, and I'm going to put all this on an email. So we already mentioned the common salary plan, and we've already mentioned the shared cost of the activity day, and we agreed no poaching of trainees. We agreed that we would all try and help together to provide training on specialist equipment. We thought it would be a good idea to promote a job share scheme where it was appropriate. So we've got one particular organization doesn't have, they do more DIT rather than cameras. So we were going to have that person here for a period and have one of our guys working over there, and also for us to agree to positively market it as well. I mean, there's nothing particularly difficult here, just, I mean, really for us to decide that's what we want to do. And if we want to do it, let's work together to make it work. I mean, like I said, it's a bit of a disappointment that we don't have John Buckley here, who felt that it wasn't quite working the way that he wanted it to. You know, I think in the same way that you know, we had this Brexit thing because some people didn't like how it was going, rather than being on the inside trying to shape it. This is how I see with the apprenticeship scheme, that this is our apprenticeship scheme, and we need to make it work and improve it if it needs to improve. So this is the proposed timetable. So we're launching it now. We'd look for some sponsorship, so some commitment from sponsoring companies, and then see whether, I suppose I ought to really put on here commitment from Aspec, if Aspec are also going to take over this, which it's a bit of a chicken and egg, because Aspec want to know that there's enough people who are interested in the program in order to do this. So anyway, there you go. So we have the activity day, the job offers, and the first intake in August, and this intake would then complete in February 2024. So far, those people who have actually committed to it are here. That's currently what we have, and there is a link on that on all the emails which I've sent to everyone.
Just as a quick note, Area Rental has not committed yet. That was a level of interest, and
it's a level of interest. Yes, absolutely. This is not a commitment. This is sorry. So thank you, Dana, and I got your name right this time. So yeah. I mean, we're looking to see where we are, because you know, we don't want to be pushing a donkey uphill if the donkey doesn't want to go uphill. You know.
Can I say, I think one of the reasons why, because I know that when you presented this, when this kind of landed before COVID, and I've shared with you in prior meetings, you know, because I feel like Area Rental's got a bit of a conflict of interest, because 5 years ago, I started the Area Inspire program, and that still is successfully moving. It's still happening. We're still doing that. Now, these are leavers. These are not people, young kids in school, young people, but they're paid above the national living wage. They've got pension, holiday, sick time, contract, and all the benefits of employee of being at Area Rental. And I just feel like there's a bit of a conflict for us because of what we are already doing here. That's some of my concerns at the moment.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, this just to reiterate, and I don't want to repeat myself, but this is all borne out of the fact that we had experienced back in 2018 a lot of staff turnover, and having spoken to other people within Aspec and other rental companies, this was a problem which was not unique to us, and we wanted to justify paying all of our staff more, and that's how the project was born out. So I'm really pleased that that's working for you, but this is not aimed at people who have been to university and have that and are at that level of maturity. This is people who are not electing to go to university, who might have, I mean, within those people that you have, if you were to have a look at BAME, you probably find that that you wouldn't have the same, and that's one of the things that Phil does, is making sure that that we have suitable proportions of BAME candidates, because we want to make the industry more inclusive. So that
Absolutely.
was part of, you know, our intention behind this was, you know, to have underprivileged people from Harlesden and Willesden, you know, applying, you know, who might not have considered TV as a career. They don't know anybody else who's a DP, camera operator, producer, whatever. And here there's an opportunity for them to not earn the minimum wage and learn a trade and a skill. So that, I mean, that was the idea behind it. So I don't see that it's in conflict. It's a different process.
Can I say, Barry, on sort of covering a lot of that stuff in relation to sort of salary and how it works out and all those things? I think one of the things we need to do is work out how many you're going to get, who you want, but also the ages. So when we talked last time, it was about the age of the people and what they need. And as Matteo said about needing to drive, we need people that can drive. We won't necessarily have the same people as other companies might have taking 16-year-olds. I think that has an impact on the training. If you've got people in a classroom that are 16 and people in a classroom that are 21, 22, and the difference between those types of people, it also has an impact therefore on the salary and what's being rewarded and for retention. So it's really about focusing and narrowing down whether the remit currently is too wide, because at the moment there's a lot of very different companies on this call. Can that feasibly work when you've got someone of a corporate size like Harry versus someone like me who's very small, and I can't necessarily take on every single year another person. I just don't have the physical space in my small office. So it's about kind of finding where's the sweet spot that ticks the boxes for all of those people, because otherwise if we only want very youngsters for some companies and older people for others, I don't think either the salary is going to work or the training is going to work. And that would be my concern from that point of view. And I think that's some of the stuff we've actually come across in this first year.
Well, I think this is a really important point. Matt, are you able to give us your views on this? Because I know that having spoken to Tara earlier, she said that this is something that you're quite interested in, but obviously Panavision, they weren't part of the first year. Okay, I'm not sure he's going to be able to volunteer that. Okay, all right. So where do we go to from here? As a consequence of today, do we have anybody else? You know, I'm not going to put people on the spot here. I'll send.
Sorry, I'm just jumping in.
Okay. So what are your thoughts so far, Matt?
You're on mute at the moment, Matt, if you are listening.
Sorry, I seem to be on a big delay with everyone. And dog barking in the background.
Well, I just say in the meantime, while we're waiting for Matt to come back, I would register interest, but I will. At the moment, I'm trying to push a very large amount of new roles through. So getting approval on another one may take longer than will fit in with this selection process. I might have to go solo on that one slightly later in the year.
Okay. Matt, do you have anything that you wish to contribute? Doesn't matter if you don't or you're not able to. Okay. All right. Well, listen,
sorry, Barry, I have one more question. One of the things I've read here is, and some of the articles that I've read about the program, is the guarantee full-time employment after the apprenticeship program ends. And that hasn't been talked about. And is that plausible? Is that, how can that guarantee from temporary to permanent? I mean, I guess we could budget for that. We can get approval for that, but is that expressed to these young people that there's a guarantee of full-time employment?
Well, that was my goal behind this. When you take people on as an apprentice, they actually have even higher staff protection than a regular member of staff. You are there, they're not there to work by law, they're there for you to train them, which is quite an interesting thought. So if you want to go down this route, you need to be sure that we do want to go down this route, and you ought to be planning on. But I mean, obviously, if you have someone, in fact, I was speaking about this with my wife just this morning, and it doesn't work out. Let's say you've got someone and genuinely it doesn't work out. They're not appropriate. They're not working. They're not engaged. They're not learning. Then you would go through exactly the same process as you would with a regular member of staff in order to stop the program. But you know, on the sort of salary, the starting salary for the first year, if somebody really wasn't engaged, then I would think that they wouldn't really want to stay. And after having put a year and a half of effort and time and money into them, you would probably want them to continue, because there'd be a trained member of staff that you've molded to your company. That's my idea.
I don't feel that's quite correct in our case, certainly, because we don't employ anyone in the camera or lighting departments unless we have brought them into work with us short term. That could be a couple of weeks, could be a month, but it's very difficult to judge someone's character and appropriateness for a job just on an interview basis, even if it's an extended interview basis. So I would say, and particularly since we only have one or two people in some roles, it would be very difficult to commit to anything as rigid as full-time employment until we had more experience per person. We would at least expect them to do a 2 or 3 month probationary period as a trainee before we confirm that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one for me, because you know, the concept for the Area Inspire program for me was to train these young people with the best possible opportunity to go out and be freelance. I don't want to see these young people. I mean, unless there's a position that becomes available during their tenure here and they want to apply for it, brilliant. But my goal always was to help them into this industry that they're so desperate to be out there. If it be lighting, if it be DP, if it be focus pooling, whatever it might be. So it's just an interesting one that I'm trying to kind of get my head wrapped around. When I see these young people leave Area Rental to get their first job as trainee on set, that's a huge success for me. If I benefit from going from temporary to a permanent contract because there's a job role that comes up and they can apply for it, and that makes sense that they fit into that role, brilliant. So,
and I think Dana, what you've raised is really, really important, because that is where this is fundamentally different for me.
yeah.
I had actually planned for this to be an opportunity to teach people how to be technicians, and they would actually want to stay as technicians. So that was rather than freelance crew.
But that is what we're doing also through the 3 years in this program. This is what we are doing. You know, they go out with skills that some of the crews out there don't have now.
Okay, listen, this isn't for everyone. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, Barry, just
yes,
one final question. Going back to Tom's point about judging someone once they're in the work environment, and if it's not working out, like we've had various people say, we had some candidates that didn't work out. It was sort of a mutual thing. But once you've taken someone on, how committed are you to keeping them for the whole period? Can you just say, look, it's not working out?
well, of course,
yeah,
absolutely. You know, I mean, there's you will give them your contract as per usual. They will be on a 3 month, 6 month probation period, whatever. I mean, they have to deliver. They're being employed by you, but after you go beyond the probationary period, then obviously, you know, it's not quite so easy just to make someone go. But I mean, ultimately, that's why we have Phil working in the guise that he is, because we want to be able to choose, and we want to see how they're going to work, and we're going to see how they're going to talk and how they're going to act in a team. and how they're going to act under a little bit of stress and how they perform in an interview. And then when they start working for you, whether they are on time every day and how much interest and effort and how engaged are they. I mean, these are all things that you can see in quite a short time. But
No,
yes, I
I
agree.
just want to know if those sort of probation periods still apply if they've signed up to an
For sure,
apprenticeship.
absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
And one more question I have, Barry, could you send through details of what you would expect to have covered during the college days?
That's all on public domain. So if you just Google, well, there's a link on that story, but if you just Google Camera Tech apprenticeship, then it will take you to the Institute of Apprenticeship, and there you'll see all of the behaviors. Well, what are they, Mick? You know, these attitudes,
Knowledge,
behaviors,
skills, behaviours.
Yeah.
knowledge, skills, behaviors. Thank you.
Knowledge, skills, behaviours and their occupational standards. But we also have, like, we've got the 18-month roadmap that we can send out with specifics, which will cover kind of week for week what they would do. But like I say, like reflecting on this year, we're really keen to engage with employers so that we can create, you know, nuanced roadmaps for different employers as well.
Well, I tell you what, if you could send me a link to that, then when I send everyone out just minutes of this particular meeting and a recording of it, then I can put a link to that too, because I think that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks very much.
Yeah, Phil, you got another question?
Well, it's just an offer to everyone. I've just stuck my email address in the chat. For those of you who are new to apprenticeships, drop me a line and we can sort out a quick chat for 30 minutes between now and the 6th of April, when I disappear for 2 weeks on holiday. So get me while you can. Barry, I sent you a link yesterday, which is for people to register with me that they are interested.
Absolutely. I have that on my minutes. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, I'll send all of my notes down to all of you, and then don't sit on it. You know, if we're going to make it happen, then we need to make it happen. And if it's not going to happen, if this really, having gone through all of this process, we feel that, do you know what, this isn't appropriate for our industry, then we either need to accept it as it is, or we need to change something. So, you know, that's really what today's all about, to get some feedback, because, you know, what we'd originally set up hasn't been as, I mean, there aren't as many people here as I had hoped that there would be, but I mean, that's been that all the way along. So let's see how it goes, and then we can reconvene and make our next steps. Thanks, everyone.
Good stuff. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Cool.